Today, we're doing something really interesting. We're going to follow the money in Africa's largest economy. We are literally tracing the journey of every naira of Nigeria's public revenue, from the oil fields and the tax offices, all the way down to the schools and roads it's supposed to build.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? How does a nation with over 200 million people fund everything from highways to hospitals? Well, it's definitely not magic. It's actually a pretty carefully designed system, a complex journey of collection, consolidation, and then distribution. And by the end of this, you'll see exactly how it's all supposed to work.
So, here's our roadmap for today. Think of it as the journey of the Naira, and we're going to follow it through 5 key stages. We'll start at the very beginning, where the money comes from. Then, we'll meet the agencies that actually collect it. We'll see where it all gets pooled together, discover how it gets divided up, and finally, really dig into why this whole journey is so incredibly important for everyone.
Okay, first things first. Just like your own budget, a country's finances have to start with income. So, where does Nigeria's government revenue actually come from? Let's take a look.
You can think of the nation's treasury as being fed by a few major rivers. Now, the biggest one, historically, has always been oil and gas revenue. We're talking crude oil sales, royalties, you name it. But, as the economy evolves, taxes from other corporations are becoming absolutely vital. The third pillar here is customs, which collects duties on pretty much all the goods flowing across Nigeria's borders. And then you have some other smaller streams, but together, these are the big ones that form the foundation of the national budget.
Right. So this money doesn't just magically appear in a bank account. Nope. There's a formal process with specific government agencies that act as the official gatekeepers. Each one is responsible for a different stream of revenue. Let's meet them.
For the biggest piece of the pie, oil and gas, 2 players are absolutely critical. First, you have the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, or NNPCL. They handle the commercial side of things, like oil sales. Then you have the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, the NURC, which is the industry regulator, making sure all the royalties and fees are paid correctly. You really need both of them to make sure that revenue from the nation's natural resources is collected.
Next up is the Federal Inland Revenue Service. You probably know them as the FIRES. Now, if the NNPCL is all about oil, the FIRES is all about taxes. This is the agency in charge of collecting that crucial non-oil revenue, things like company income taxes and petroleum profit taxes from businesses that are operating all across Nigeria.
And, of course, guarding the borders, we have the Nigeria Customs Service. Their job is pretty straightforward. They collect revenue from international trade. So that means all the import and export duties, levies, and any other taxes on goods that are crossing into or out of the country.
So we've got all these different agencies, right? All collecting money from all these different sources. But where does it all go? Well, it doesn't just stay in a bunch of separate accounts. Instead, all of these streams flow together into one single massive government pot. And that central pot has a name, the Federation Account. Now, what's really interesting here is that this isn't just some administrative choice. Oh no, this is actually mandated by the Nigerian Constitution. It's designed to be the nation's main financial reservoir, holding all the revenue collected by the federal government before a single naira of it is spent or shared.
And this brings us to what might be the most critical stage of the whole journey. Once all that money is pulled together in the Federation account, how is it divided? I mean, who gets what? This is where the system gets really, really interesting.
This really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? The answer is in a specific, legally defined revenue allocation formula that's designed to distribute the nation's wealth among all the different levels of government.
And here it is, the formula that splits the pie. The federal government gets the biggest slice, 52.68%. The country's 36 states, they collectively receive 26.72%. And finally, the 774 local governments share the rest, which is 20.60%. This three-way split is the fundamental engine for funding public services across the entire country.
But hang on a second, there's a really important little detail here. Before that main split we just saw happens, a special deduction is made directly from the revenue that comes from natural resources, like oil. This is known as a first-line charge.
So, the number to remember is this one, 13%. The Constitution says that 13% of the revenue generated from natural resources must be returned directly to the states where those resources came from. This is called the principle of derivation, and it's a critical part of the framework that happens before the main split we just talked about. Okay, so we've followed the money from its source into the central pot, and we've seen how it's divided. But why does any of this matter to the average person? Let's connect this high-level financial journey to what it actually means for you, right there in your neighborhood.
Let's just follow the federal government share for a moment. It doesn't stay in the Federation account. Remember, that's just a holding pot for all 3 tiers of government. Instead, the federal portion gets moved into its own dedicated account, the Consolidated Revenue Fund, or the CRF. You can think of the CRF as the federal government's main operational bank account.
And what does the CRF actually pay for? Well, pretty much everything. It covers the salaries for federal civil servants, pensions for retirees, it pays for servicing the national debt, and it covers the salaries of key officials like judges. And, crucially, it's also the source of funding for major national development projects.
And you know, it all boils down to this simple idea. The whole purpose of this entire system is, simply put, for the government to generate revenue, to run the administration of the nation, and execute development projects. It's really all about service and development.
So here's the real takeaway. That complicated journey of oil revenue and taxes and customs duties flowing through the Federation account and then the CRF, that is precisely how a nation's wealth gets converted into tangible things. The roads we drive on, the schools our kids go to, and the healthcare that we all rely on.
So understanding this flow of money is the first step for sure, but it kind of leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? We've seen the mechanism for how a nation's wealth is distributed, but what do you think is the single most important factor, whether it's transparency or efficiency or something else entirely, in making sure this system actually works for everyone?